It's been 1 year now of revolution and repression in Syria, and of course, on one obvious level, it's terribly depressing looking at what's going on. At least 8,000 people have been killed, quite possibly many, many more than that. Tens of thousands, we don't know how many, have been arrested, and most of those have been horribly tortured. Villages and cities have been attacked with artillery and tanks. We see all this on the news every day, maybe not as much as we should be seeing, because it's going on a massive scale, and it's terribly depressing, and the future at the moment doesn't look very good. On the other hand, it's also immensely inspiring. Syria is a country which, not very long ago, people didn't dare to talk politics even in their own houses. People were scared to talk to their own children about what they really thought of the political system, because they were scared that their children would repeat what they heard at home in school, and this would cause trouble for the adults of the house. And now you see an explosion of expression, articulacy, and creativity. I think that, as well as it being absolutely awful and terrible for the Syrian people to live in such fear and deprivation at the moment, for many of them it's also a great liberation that finally they can say what they think, they can say it in the street, they can trust their neighbours and the people that they're out demonstrating with. It's a great moment in that respect. And if you look at the YouTube videos, you see people not just shouting slogans, but singing and dancing, holding up the artworks that they've done at home. Art is at the forefront of this revolution. And artists and writers and intellectuals and actors are also at the forefront of this revolution. That's very inspiring, being based in Britain and seeing how many of our artists, many of our big writers just don't take a position on anything, and if they do, it's often the wrong position. It's the lowest common denominator position. I'm thinking of someone like Martin Amis and his friends. In Syria, of course, also has its state intellectuals, its intellectuals who like to cozy up to power. I think, for example, of Hussein Sha'ban, who translated Chinua Achebe's novels into Arabic. So you would think that a great translator like that would be somebody who cares about the meaning of words, about language having its own value, but apparently she doesn't, because now she's working as a professional liar. Her public statements are really quite obscene and ridiculous. But on the other hand, there are many, many Syrian artists who have taken a humane position, and they've distinguished themselves. Just off the top of my head, I think of Rasha Omran, the poet and feminist, Samar Yazbek, the writer, the novelist and journalist, Fadwa Suleiman, the actress who's been leading demonstrations in Homs, May Skaf, the actress who was briefly arrested. And then I think of people that we hadn't heard of before, like Ibrahim Qashush, who wrote a wonderful song against the regime called Arhal Ya Bashar, Get Out Bashar. Ibrahim Qashush was found with his vocal cords ripped out, thrown into the river, in a very direct act of brutal symbolism from the regime. Somebody else that we're going to be talking to later, the great cartoonist Ali Farzad, had his hands broken, again in a very direct piece of symbolism from the regime. Now, what I'll do is Sure. Oh, Al Jazeera is filming,
yeah.
And if people are not happy with that for any reason, because they don't like their coverage on Bahrain or something, throw stones at them. But if you're happy with the inevitable hypocrisy which comes with any big news organisation, then just keep quiet. I'm going to introduce the panellists one by one. First I'm going to introduce Steve, then I'm going to let him speak for 5-10 minutes, then I'll introduce the next one who will also speak for 5-10 minutes. Steve Chandra Savale is also known by his stage name Chandra Sonic, and he's best known for his punk rave aesthetic, whatever that is, as the guitarist for the groundbreaking British-Asian band, the Asian Dub Foundation. I'm sure many of you will have grown up with the Asian Dub Foundation like me. In 2009 he presented a series of documentaries for Al Jazeera English called Music of Resistance, which is very relevant to our theme this evening, so please, Steve.
Right, thanks. Well, I'm very honoured to be asked to speak here at an event like this with such an illustrious company. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Syria or the particular situation that's going on there, in depth anyway. But what I'd like to do is to tell you about some of my ideas about music as a platform, as a form of cultural resistance, and the various ways that I think it can act as a resisting force against various forms of repression. Now, I was, as Robin said, I've been the guitarist of Asian Dub Foundation for 18 years now. We began in this very building, funnily enough, when it was an organisation called Community Music. And what I'd like to do is, over the years, with Asian Dub Foundation and the series that I presented with the very popular Al Jazeera network called Music of Resistance, I've tried to ascertain a few categories about how I've seen music acting in a very progressive and positive way, and even in some cases to the point of being at the forefront of making a seriously radical change to particular social and political environments. Now, the first model, I suppose, if you want to call it that, I call it just a specific campaign model, and this I had direct experience of with Asian Dub Foundation. Now, we were started in this building 19 years ago when this house and organisation called Community Music. We were a very unusual group on all fronts, really, a mixture of drum and bass, rap, reggae, punk rock, traditional sounds from India and Bangladesh. Very unusual at the time, but even more unusual was that we had a strong cultural and political agenda against the prevalent retrogressive thing that was known as Britpop, which is about reviving old British notions of nationalism and Britain being the greatest country in the world, blah blah. We were very much against that. The very first ADF gig was a gig against the election, a protest against the election of the British neo-fascist British National Party, a candidate that won on the Isle of Dogs. We were about encouraging young Asians to be more vocal about their experiences, to find a voice. It was very different, it was very new at the time, we weren't alone. Now, we all know, you probably all know about things like Live Aid, Free Nelson Mandela, songs like that. You know, it's very clear how sometimes music can attach itself to a particular cause, what have you. But ours was very much, and we always struggled to be far more grassroots and far more kind of controversial campaigns that we would get in touch with. We were contacted by a group called the Free Satpal Ram campaign. Satpal Ram was a man who had been convicted of manslaughter after being the victim of a racist attack in a bar in Birmingham. He was not given a fair trial, there was no translators for the witnesses at his trial, the sentence was incredibly harsh, he was badly advised, blah blah, usual stuff. And we were surprised with how this turned out. This was a very successful campaign. We were approached by the Free Satpal campaign, we wrote a song, not thinking it would get anywhere. It got national radio play, it got in the top 50 charts. We got our record company of the time to spend enormous amounts of money putting up 20,000 posters with Free Satpal Ram on it, on the poster. Very well-known British bands like Primal Scream, Radiohead, all got on board. And eventually, after the passage of the Human Rights Act, plus some amazing work by a grassroots campaign, Satpal was released in 2000. So that's one way that music can work, that you attach yourself to a particular campaign, and you get behind it, and you spread information widely, and I think you can make for great success. Now the other one is, another model is something I called the counter-institution. It's like, it's what this building was, where we started off and where I'm still working now. place called Community Music, which was very much encouraging people to use music as a form of expression, particularly aimed at people that might not otherwise get the chance to engage in music and might not have a voice. In fact, the original Asian Dub Foundation was a union of myself, who was a teacher, and young, mainly Asians, by no means not exclusively so, young people who came to the project, who came to the workshops, and we encouraged them to express themselves, to create music, to tell their story. And as you can imagine, at the time, this wasn't a lot of what was going on here on the streets was not something that the music industry or wider British society was particularly interested in until groups like us started to shout about it. Now, to go a bit more international here, I mean, when we did the show with Al Jazeera, we were looking to find other similar organisations and groups like ourselves in often radically different circumstances. And one of those circumstances was the favelas of Brazil and a group called Afro Reggae. Some of you may have heard of them. A film has been made about them. It's called Favela Rising. And their story is truly astounding. It's probably one of the greatest stories of cultural resistance, music as cultural resistance that I've heard of. We all know about the favelas, I'm sure. 20% of Brazil's population lives in the favelas. It was only until recently that they were even given any official existence. Now, Afro Reggae was formed after a brutal police massacre in one of the favelas, which left a lot of children orphaned. They started off as a percussion group, teaching people how to play percussion. They eventually became a full band. They eventually, at the moment, they operate across 17 favelas. They have more than 5,000 people participating in it. It's an incredible story. They are the linchpin between the local state and all kinds of things, health projects, education projects. They even teach things like IT, graffiti, classical music, everything. And this is in some of the poorest and most dangerous places in the world. They set this up amongst drug trafficantes who basically run the favelas. An amazing story. And the band themselves have become successful in their own right. They even supported the Rolling Stones, you know. But they're fiercely independent. They become a political force of their own. They refuse to be appropriated by the local state. And I do recommend that you all look at Favela Rising if you get the chance, or the episode that I did about them online. Now, the last category, and I think this is perhaps more relevant to what we're talking about today, is what I consider where the musical form, the musical genre itself, is radicalised by the political and social environment. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples of this. Again, one of the programs that I made for Music of Resistance was about a band called Tinariwen. If you don't know them, they're a group, they are very internationally famous now, but they're originally Tuareg people from the north of Mali, also around Algeria and Libya and Niger. Originally they suffered great hardship after the independence of Mali. There was a bit on and off civil war that went on for 30 years. The leader of Tinariwen, Ibrahim Al-Habib, his father was killed in the original Tuareg rebellion of 1963. Him and what became his band members were banished to refugee camps in Algeria, and eventually they ended up in military training camps in Libya under the watchful eye of Colonel Gaddafi. And it was here that the band made a very innovative turn. Whereas up to then they'd been playing very traditional music, Ibrahim particularly made two important innovations. Firstly, he started playing electric guitar, which hadn't really been done in that part of the world before. But secondly, and this is most important I think, they started to write words and lyrics about the situations of the Tuaregs. And this was unheard of. It doesn't sound that radical here maybe, but beforehand the music was all traditional. you just sang old songs. All of a sudden, here was a group of younger people, young Tuaregs, in a Libyan training camp, singing about their particular political, social situation. Now, the great tagline for Tinariwen, for those who know them, is that they swapped their guns for guitars. That's not actually true. At one point, they were both guerrilla leaders as well as spreading information through their songs. I was told of a wonderful story that they showed me a cassette. This cassette we used to distribute through all the various Tuareg groups from Algeria, Niger, Libya and Mali, and we got them all to come to a place called Teraha, which is an incredible stone circle where they launched their first attacks on the Malian state. And basically they were gathered by the songs of Tinariwen. Tinariwen were the leaders of the guerrilla army. It's an incredible fusion of musician and activist like I've never heard of before. And not only that, by 1994, when the first civil war, major civil war was over, they were at the negotiating table. And they basically got a lot more regional autonomy and a lot more spending on the local infrastructure. I think that's a major achievement for musicians. It's a story of epic proportions and should really inspire us, given that we live in a country where things like music and stuff like that is only about lifestyle and branding, blah blah, which is what you were saying, really, about artists taking positions on things. Can you think of artists that have taken a stronger position than those guys? Not me. But now it's from there, from Tinariwen, the idea that you can actually be at the forefront of social change to the degree that an entire people's destiny is altered for the better through music. I think, I'd like to contend actually that this is quite a relevant model and experience for what I've seen coming from the Arab Spring over the past year or so. Now, I firmly believe that rap music has been, as a genre and practice, been revitalised by the Arab Spring in a way that I hope, and I've seen in small way in this country even, will have positive long-term repercussions on that form of music itself. Now, you mentioned Ibrahim Al-Kashush earlier, how he was murdered for creating that song. I mean, the music is interesting, physically it's a non-violent act, but it's extremely dangerous for regimes, because particularly with regard to Syria, because having artists making songs, popular songs, saying really powerful things, you know, it undermines the narrative that the government is defending the people against armed resistance, against armed gangs. So that's why I think the state comes down so heavily on artists, or one reason, because it undermines the narrative that they want to display. Now, Chuck D of Public Enemy once called rap the black man's CNN, and rap's origin was totally about social consciousness, community organisation, spreading information that is relevant to communities. And I think it's this that we've seen re-emerge in the Arab Spring, you know, from all the countries, Libya, Tunisia, Syria, Bahrain. I could name lots of examples, but you don't have to. You can just go on YouTube and you will see thousands, literally thousands of rappers, musicians, all at the heart of the struggle in every one of those countries. And it's not confined to the Middle East either. You see a fantastic example in Russia recently, where a feminist group called Pussy Riot stood on the Kremlin wall and started shouting anti-Putin slogans. They are now sadly in prison. But we are in a new era where music is at the centre of resistance again. Right? Now in Britain, and this goes back to what you were saying, Robin, there's been a concerted effort to reduce conscious content in music. Music has really been pushed. Yeah? Okay, I'm just about to finish. Yeah. It's been pushed to the background. It's the background to branding, to lifestyle accessories. Now, what I've seen is like with the kind of rap that's come out of the Arab Spring, that's come out of Palestine, a whole generation of young people watching this on YouTube, and the such like are being influenced by this. Now we have rappers like Akala and Loki in Britain, and we also have all this fantastic stuff on YouTube coming from the Arab Spring. Now I have seen 16, 17-year-olds get together, write rap music that is conscious, that is international, that is not disrespectful to women, that is not about money. I've seen stuff about Palestine, I've seen stuff about the Arab Spring, I've seen stuff about the education cuts here, on a scale that I've never come across before. And I'm optimistic that the culture, the young musical culture that's come from the Arab Spring is going to revitalise what was a moribund and establishment music form. I think that the fantastic examples we've seen from Syria, Egypt and Libya, despite all the attempts to suppress it, whether it's crude, murderous state repression, or belittling its worth in this country by being dominated by sponsorship and branding, that we're on the verge of a sea change in how popular music's role is perceived. Thank you.
When I heard Steve talking about the Tuareg musicians who were politicians and guerrilla fighters at the same time, it reminded me of the famous, world-famous Egyptian novelist Alaa al-Aswani, who wrote the Yahoubian Building, which became a hit film in the Arab world. He actually precipitated the fall of a prime minister last year. Just after the unseating of Mubarak, there was a Mubarak-era prime minister who'd been appointed by the military. And Alaa al-Aswani, live on TV, confronted the guy and said, how can you be prime minister when you know that nobody trusts you and nobody likes you, nobody wants you? How can you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning? And the army sacked the bloke the next day because he couldn't go on after that. So yeah, novelists, for example, and artists are having a direct political effect in what's going on. So let's now talk or hear from a Syrian novelist, Manhal al-Sarraj, an award-winning Syrian author. She's published a number of books, including Overcoming the Bridge and As the River Must, which was banned from publication in Syria because it dealt with the Hama massacre in 1982. It seems like this country has to have a large-scale massacre once every generation. And it's the 30th year anniversary that the massacre in Homs and elsewhere in Syria is happening 30 years after the massacre in Hama, which Manhal's novel talks about. Another novel called On My Chest, and her most recent novel is called Defiant Blood, released last year by Dar al-Adab. She's also in Banipal magazine. If you want to see some recent stuff, it's in this edition of Banipal magazine, which is worth getting for its exposure of Arab literary voices that we don't normally hear in the West. And I think at 8:30 tonight you can hear some of her work too. So now, Manhal al-Sarraj.
I would like to thank you and thank the invitation. Thank Eleanor. It's really my pleasure to be here. And I want you excuse me that my English is not so enough, but I'll try. When I started to write this presentation about the topic culture under fire and resistance in Syria, I asked myself, why am I a writer? The answer was because I discovered I was a writer. And this is the thing that I know. And I find myself in writing. Writing now really is my life. It's the future, it's the past, it's the present. And sometimes I hope that it remains after my death. The first text I wrote was in 1995. Before began writing, the condition around me was not good. I could not continue my graduate studies after completing my mechanical engineer degree because I was prevented of security service branches in Aleppo. To continue your studies in Syria after graduating from university, you need official approval from security service. So I returned to Hama and my hometown and worked as a mechanical engineer. With the terrible level of corruption, the work was very difficult. And with the male workers, the work also was very difficult. Male workers, they refused to take any order from young girl. So I was 30 years old, was unable to achieve my ambitions as in career and in education. So one evening I was sitting and listening to the radio when a program came on and talked about new writing. So I found myself in 10 minutes wrote text and sent it to the radio station. After some weeks, I got the reply, and really it was a great encouragement. It was like a divine inspiration. I was very, very glad. So, my first book, To Overcoming the Bridge, came out in 1997, and it was a collection of short stories. This book got positive response from the readers and also awarded some prizes from Union of Arab Writers. So I decided to continue from there. In 1999, I finished my novel, As the River Must Be. In this book, I told the story of Hama. This text, this novel, it was filled of all my memories about Hama, my wishes, my sadness, my happiness. I described the places that had great value, historical value, but it destroyed. I talk about Hama events that happened in 1982 when the Syrian regime army leveled many neighborhoods and killed many thousands of people. I finished my book and sent it to the Ministry of Media. Oh, yes, I did that. It was, and Hafiz Assad was in power, Hafiz Assad in 1999. And simply I sent it, yes. So really it was crazy to do that, but I did that. And they thought many months. then they sent the 3 reports. They talk that the technical level of the work is good, but yes, but the topic talk about Hama events and no to publish it. Yes.
At least they said the technical.
Yes, yes, they are. We're lucky.
You see, there is freedom.
There is freedom. Yes. And I was this time at the beginning of my writing, so this ban really shook me. I told some friends and my family, they read the novel and it's very nice, but of course after some time they forgot it. and I did not get any support from the regime opposition group. So I found myself alone with my novel that must stay in my desk. When I was writing this novel, I expected great applause. So the no I got to publish my first novel was the first big challenge I would face. What could I do? My character is not a political one. My personality is not that of a woman who likes to fight on a daily basis or to rebel every day. I thought long and hard and asked myself, can I write on another topic, an Arabic topic that would be a bestseller? But of course I would not. I have never decided the subject that I write. The words run by themselves and they tell a story. Now when I remember this 1999, I was searching for happiness. So I should continue writing. This is my decision was. I should continue writing, even I could not publish my writing. And I consistently convince myself that I am rich with my books, even though I could not share them with enough readers. But of course, sometimes I become angry and don't believe myself. But new writing, this kind of exercise, after every handicap step, was the self-resistance during all these 18 years of writing. It was no ready plan to write in opposite of the political situation, but inspiration that leads me and in the writing, also in the life. This is my character. Now, when El Bouazizi acted, Tunisian revolution broke out, I was very excited. Repression in Syria is not just a general situation. El Bouazizi touched my own concerns. And when I heard the first call came from Damascus, Syrian people will never be humiliated. I was very excited and hopeful and realized how long time we had been waiting for this moment. But shortly, when I saw that children came in Daraa, came home from prison with the effects on faces and fingers, I could not be optimistic. Now I take it just much painful, all of this, and now I watch it just as we have disaster. So my question was, should we bury children's body to get the flower? Should all our life to get the skulls from the past and dead body from the present? Now I'm living in Stockholm and try to write in pure memory, pure thinking. But of course, I need my father's house, I need my Arabic, and I'm living with the fact that I was not able to contribute the progress of the life on our land. Perhaps one day the novel will carry that instead of me. This is the story. Thank you very much.
Are your books published in English?
No.
I hope that there's some. I hope some publishers are here, or people who know publishers, because I think this is a moment in which the British and Western readership in general would go out and buy books, novels which concern Syrian history, Syrian politics, the Hama massacre, and so on. So, if you are here, please pay attention.
But we have also many love stories also.
Of course, of course. But I think it's not all bad. I think there is at the moment though a popular interest in Syria in the West. So it would be a good idea if some publishers would publish more stuff. Number 3, Donatella Della Rata. Is that right?
Yeah.
Donatella Della Rata is an academic who specialises in the study of Syrian cultural production. She works at the University of Copenhagen and the Danish Institute in Damascus. She's the author of several articles for leading scholarly journals. She focuses on culture of resistance, which Steve was talking about, but specifically in Syria, and its implications. So, Donatella.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. I have to say it's tough right now to talk about culture and art, and I've been hearing even from my friends or people on social networks the same tune, which is how do you guys are able to talk, or why are you willing to talk about culture or cultural resistance or civil disobedience or non-violent resistance in a time where people are dying, where children are dying, where women are raped, and we see the massacres every day in Syria. Well, indeed, it's a tough time, but I feel it's our duty also as people who are studying this and who have been studying culture in Syria for many years, like before the revolution happened. I feel it's our duty also to carry on. I think everybody has got a different role in this situation, and I feel that some of us, we should do this. Also remind, and that's why I came today with the story that I want to share with you. A story which is about, it's also helpful for me to remind myself what happened in Syria. I was lucky enough to be there when the uprising started. I've been living in Syria for the past 4 years, working at the Danish Institute and studying creative production, especially the TV soap opera production, which I will go back to at the end of my, yes, the Musalsalat, so famous Musalsalat. So I want to tell you a story, I want to tell you what I felt when I was in Damascus, and just next door to my house, which is in the city center in Damascus, the beautiful old Damascus, I heard the slogan, Sha'b al-Suri Wahad, the Syrian people is one. Which was for me a surprise. I was passing by, and the first actually demonstration was happening on 17th of February, so before the official happening of the revolution. It was just like a random demonstration. Somebody was beaten by the police. It was in my neighbor. It's the souk neighbor where the market is. It's a busy area. People are selling stuff, buying stuff, and somebody was beaten by the police, and then a spontaneous demonstration came, and the people were chanting, the Syrian people will not be humiliated. And for us it was like a big surprise. Of course, probably we wouldn't have believed to this had not we been there, just next door to the demonstration. But anyway, after 15th of March came, there were other sparks in town before 15th of March. There was also a very important demonstration in front of the Libyan embassy, and I went there, and it was actually sitting against Gaddafi, but there were so many Syrian people, artists, intellectual, people who have names, and I'm sure that the people here, if I tell the names, the Syrians know who was there. But anyway, these people were there to chant freedom for Libya, but of course they were also rehearsing for Syria in a way. So there were so many little sparks, okay, that we could witness. And these people are well-known people. They are not conspirators, they are not foreigners, they are well-known Syrian people, okay? And they were chanting, the Syrian people is one, and we want freedom and dignity. I just want to remind this, just for the sake of history, for the sake of records, you know, because everybody then messed it up with, you know, Russia, China, US, but at the end of the day, we were there. We saw the beginning was like that. And after March 15, so the official beginning, again, next to my house, in the souk, the first group of people, I think no more than 50 people, but very brave, they were chanting again, the Syrian people are one. And they were descending on the straight street, a very famous street in old Damascus. And then the regime, of course, started to realize there is something. And then I was surrounded, not only me, all the people in Damascus. I can talk about Damascus, which is the place I know better, not other cities. But in Damascus, if Yasmin, can you play? I saw, 1 week after the first demonstration, I saw this everywhere in Damascus. Can you please make a slideshow? Okay, I saw this everywhere. Everybody saw this. This is an advertising saying, "Ana mal qanun." It means I am with the law. It means I am abiding by the law. Okay, this was everywhere in Damascus, and I guess in other Syrian cities a week after the first demonstration. And this was a clear message, you know, a clear message from the regime. Like I warn you guys. This is the law, you are doing something which is against the law, which is demonstrating. And this was like a kind of Orwellian thing, because it was everywhere in the city. So it was like you couldn't walk, and these little hands were raised everywhere, saying, "Ana mal qanun, ana mal qanun, I am with the law, I am with the law." Whether I am a boy or a girl, whether I am small or big, whether I am old or young, whether I am emotional or rational. Okay, many different slogans saying the same thing, I am with the law. And then, okay, so, I mean, I thought, okay, we got the message, we understand, we should stop, I mean, they should stop, okay? But then, just right after, okay, no, this is the same, just to show you the difference. There were different colors. It was very pretty, I have to say. Artistically, very well done. You had blue, orange, red, all the nuances, all the slogan, but the message was the same. I am with the law. I abide by the law. But then, all of a sudden, I start seeing other things, like this one. In the virtual alley of the internet, we saw these little signs. Can you play the next one, which is Ana mo Hindi. I am not Indian, so why are you trying to fool me? I mean, do you think I'm not Syrian? Do you think I don't understand what's the law? Do you think I don't know you are making the laws for me? Do you think I am stupid? Do you think I live in another world? Do you think I'm a Martian? And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then I start seeing, play the next one, Ana hor, I am free, you know, so please don't fool me, you know. And then I start seeing the other one. This one, oh, this is my favorite. I lost my shoes, you know. And then, if you know the meaning of throwing the shoes to somebody in the airport, it's something like, I don't respect you anymore if I throw my shoes on you. Play the next one. And then I saw this one on a very interesting page called the Thawra Siniya. It means the Chinese Revolution. And this is referring to the Chinese people are like raising their hands against Jin Tao, who is the prime minister in China. But actually, the Thawra Syria, it's a Facebook page talking about the Syrian revolution in a very ironic way. They call him Bashar al-Assad. Like, you know, these kind of things. It's amazing, you know. And then, you know, I start thinking, you know, these guys are raising their hands. You know, these guys are counteracting. These guys are saying, you are trying to fool us, but we have a message for you. The message is that we are able to think by ourselves. The message is that we are creative enough as much as you are creative. The message is that I can produce my own stuff and answer to you. You are not the only one who's talking. I am answering to you. And these are answers everywhere in the net. I just brought some example, even show the other one. The other one is like, yeah, also, they did something for the Bashi, which is the people that love the president, and they were everywhere, you know, saying, we love you, you know, and they even make a video to talk to these guys and tell them, guys, do you know what you are doing now? You are, okay, you can love him, no problem, but please don't be violent. And I start seeing, even if you go on YouTube, there is a group called Ayam al-Harriya, the Freedom Days. They are posting videos, very well done, very creative, to talk to this guy, to the people that, I don't know how to translate in English, we trust you people, okay, the people who love the president, to tell them, you are a Syrian, so we respect you, but please respect us, please don't shoot at us, please don't undervalue our opinion, you know. And so after all these remixes coming on the internet, on graffiti walls in Damascus, everywhere, I saw this other one, which is again an official one. They changed the message. Ana ma'a Syria. I am with Syria. Okay, so they understood that maybe I am with the law doesn't work because they generate so many, you know, counter response. But okay, so let me say that my request is your request. You can't read that, but that's the slogan. They changed the slogan and they said, my request is your request, okay? And I am with Syria, we are all Syrian. So they slightly adjusted, you know, the message after they saw that the people were reacting. They were not like dumb. They were not like just absorbing the message. They were counteracting, you know. And then the final one, somebody wrote this. My request is freedom, Harriya. And so again, they were able to remix creatively the slogan which was made by the regime. So what's the message of this raise a dance? I mean, some of my friends, they say, well, this is useless. This is not going to throw the regime. This is not going to achieve anything. And yeah, I mean, probably not, okay? But I want to give a value to this. I want to give a value to this because after many years living in Syria and studying the so-called official cultural production, which is this Musal Salat, which now I don't want to open the door to this talk because if you are interested, I have a lecture in SOAS on Monday. Please come. we talk about Musal Salat. Now I don't have the time, but you know, the message is, after so many years that culture was under control, that culture was, you know, guided by the regime, except from very few people that are here, some of them. But after so many years of official narrative, seeing even the smallest creative act, which is writing on a poster, "Ana hur, I am free," I think should be valued. And of course you don't see this in the media, but I assure you that even if massacres are ongoing in Homs and in all the other cities, you have these small creative acts everywhere, on Facebook, on the net, on YouTube. I actually didn't bring, I mean, it's like we can stay for hours, but I have so many videos that are user-generated. I mean, this video, they don't have an author, okay? It's collective authorship, it's collective intelligence. It's the creativity coming out from the Syrian people, and I want to pay a tribute to them, because they are ongoing with this, even with the blood, you know, and I respect them for this.
Finally, last but not least, Ali Farzad is a celebrated Syrian cartoonist. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that he's the most important cartoonist in the contemporary Arab world. I mean, maybe some people would disagree with that, but I think that, as far as I can see, he's fairly unchallenged as the leading cartoonist throughout the Arab world. And he's been working for years and doing really important work. When I lived in Damascus, I remember being amazed by his work, and I've been following it ever since. He's not just a run-of-the-mill cartoonist who focuses on the event of yesterday and does a quick satire of whichever politician said something silly. He focuses on real social, cultural issues, power relationships in the society, class relationships, gender relationships, and he does that in a beautiful way. I think he's a great artist as well as a great cartoonist, so if anybody doesn't know his work, please go to the exhibition that's coming up, look him up on the internet. he should be even better known than he already is. He was awarded the 2011 Press Freedom Prize by Reporters Without Borders and Le Monde. In 2000, he launched the great, while it lasted, the great satirical newspaper called Domeri, which was forced to close. That was when Bashar al-Assad had just come to power, and people were talking about a Damascus Spring. There was an illusion for about a year or 6 months that things were actually going to change a bit. And Domeri was part of this moment, but it was forced to close 3 years later by the Ba'athist authorities. His cartoons have been banned in several Arab countries, which is a Medal of Honor. Since the popular uprising began in March last year, he's made the government's crackdown the central theme of his work, and his work has become much more specific. You can actually see the face of Bashar al-Assad these days in Ali Farzad's drawings. In the past, it was more of a kind of generic dictator or general. As a result of this, he was attacked last August by masked gunmen who broke his hands. He's been nominated for Index on Censorship's 2012 Award for Artists, Filmmakers and Writers whose work asserts artistic freedom and battles against repression and injustice. Ali Farzad.
شكرا كثير لهالمشاعر الطيبة اللي هي راس مالنا الحقيقي، يعني هي المشاعر هي رصيدنا الحقيقي الإنساني.
I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for this overwhelming feeling, which is the real capital, the real wealth I have in life.
هذا بيأكد لي قديش الفن له علاقة وثيقة بالناس في كل مكان، يعني الفن ليس حصر على منطقة جغرافية عندما يكون الفن إنساني.
This confirmed to me how strongly related art is to people and to their life, how it's never constrained to certain geographical area, especially when this is done with certain humane interest.
أنا ما تقصدت في يوم من الأيام إنه اختار مكاني كرسام أو كإنسان اللي موقع في هذه الحياة. لقيت نفسي رسام، ناقد، فنان بدون اختيار.
I never chosen to be a caricaturist. I never chosen to be the person I am right now and occupy the status I have in life or the place I have in life right now. I just found myself being a critic, a caricaturist, and an artist.
عشت مع الناس في الشارع وفي كل الأمكنة وفي مع جميع الطبقات وفي دقائق وخلايا الناس اليومية، فكنت عايشها أنا وعيشها وأتمثلها، يعني مو بس إنه أقراها، لا كنت أتمثلها أنا من خلال الرسم.
And that only happened because I lived with people. I lived with people on the streets, in every place, and people from all different groups and classes. I actually got quite indulged into the daily details and of their life, and I just only relived it when I draw it. I relived it completely.
مشان هيك يعني كنت اتشجع أكثر وأكثر لما أحس إنه صوتي صار فيه له صدى في المجتمع، صدى في العالم، صدى في كل مكان. هذا أعطاني قوة أكثر إنه أكون أشجع كل مرة من المرة الماضية.
And I became quite encouraged when I saw the good echo, I call it, of my work. Basically, how my work was celebrated in the society, in my own society, worldwide and everywhere. It made me more courageous, time after time. How my work was celebrated and how it was recepted by, basically perceived well by people. It made me very much more courageous in the next time.
سألني أحد الأشخاص بعد الحادث اللي تم من خلال الاعتداء عليه في أشهر ساحة في دمشق هي ساحة الأمويين.
One of my friends, a person asked me after the incident of assaulting me in one of the greatest places in Damascus, or the most famous square in Damascus, Umayyin Square.
وكان نتيجتها إنه أنا انكسرت إيدي هي، وأيضا كمان جزء من هذا انشعر، وكان معي ارتجاج في الدماغ من خلال الحادث.
Of course, the result of this assault, I was subjected to that the left arm was broken, the right arm was fractured, and he suffered a concussion as well.
قال لي لسه بتقدر تستمر بالرسم، يعني ما بتخاف انك انت تستمر بالرسم؟
The person, going back to the person who asked him after this incident, the question was, can you still find the courage to draw? Aren't you afraid?
قلت له بالعكس أنا صرت أخجل على نفسي أكثر لما شفت الناس عم بتضحي بروحها وبدمها وبيسيل دمها بالأرض. أنا ما قدمت شيء بقدر ما قدم حمزة الخطيب أو قدم أي طفل أو أي امرأة أو أي شاب أو أي كهل أو أي عائلة اندبحت في بيتها. أنا لسه يعني مشكلتي كتير بسيطة بالنسبة لهم.
And what I said, I'm more ashamed now of the suffering of my people. People are sacrificing their souls. People are, their blood is being spilled on a daily basis. What am I compared to Hamza al-Khatib, the child who's 13 years old who was killed in prison and returned as a dead corpse to his family? What am I to all the women who were raped? What am I in comparison to the families that are being slaughtered in their houses? I'm ashamed by their sacrifices.
أنا خجلت من ثقافتي ومن فني وقت اللي شفت ناس ربما تكون ما بيعرفوا يقروا ويكتبوا منيح، يعني شبه أميين عم يضحوا من أجل حريتي أنا.
I was ashamed by the culture and by the art, by the culture I own and by, or I have, and by the art I produced. Because of being called an artist, when I saw people who might not be as fortunate, who might not even know how to write or spell words, but they're actually sacrificing to secure my own freedom with theirs.
أنا في أطفال عمرهم سنة الآن عم يعلموني حرية الثقافة كيف. في عوائل ربما ما تجد الرغيف، ما تجد الخبز في البيت، علموني الثقافة، ثقافة الحرية. ثقافة الحرية ما هي بالبيت ولا هي بالقراءة ولا هي بالكتب. الثقافة هي السلوك. السلوك هي الثقافة فقط.
I'm humbled by children as young as 1 year old sometimes. I'm being taught the real freedom of culture, the meaning of real freedom from them. I'm humbled also by children, by families, who might not even be able to find bread for their children, but they're actually also teaching me the real meaning of freedom and in your culture. It's not necessarily about being well read, of having a cultured family. It's pretty much about how you behave yourself. It's a matter of your behavior.
وأنا الآن ما راح أحكي من قبيل التعصب، ولكن سوريا هي وطن الجميع إلكن قبل ما تكون أوطانكم الحقيقية، لأنه هي علمت العالم القراءة والكتابة بالأبجدية اللي اكتشفت في شمرة وفي أوغري.
I don't want to sound extremist from my country here. He means, or I'm just fond of it. Syria is the birthplace of culture. Syria is a place Syria is a country for each and every one of you before your own countries, because Syria is a place where the alphabets were created in Ugarit and Shamra.
لذلك لا خوف على الثورة سليلة هذه الحضارة. كل الناس ينظرون إلى الثورة من منظار سياسي ودبلوماسي ورسمي وتحليلي وأخباري، إلا الفنان يدرك تماما مدى نجاح هذه الثورة من ضميره ومن وجدانه بما قدمه، سواء كان بالرسم، سواء كان بالشعر سواء كان بالموسيقى. نحيي طبعا الأخ سميح شقير بما قدمه أيضا من أعمال فنية رائعة ساهم في تأجيج الثورة أكثر وأكثر.
I only said that to conclude that there's no fear. Fear not for the Syrian revolution and its future, because it is actually the descendant of a great culture. People who are carrying this revolution now are the descendant of this great, amazing culture. Everyone actually looked at the revolution with sort of analytical news or political point of view here, except for the artist. The artist always consider what his conscience tells him, how much he contributed himself as well. Whether it's caricature, whether it's drawing, whether it's poetry or music. And he also saluted a great musician, Syrian musician, sat with us in the hall today, Syamih Shqir, whose music, he said, helped encouraging people furthermore to continue with the revolution.